This was the home of Shirley and John Murray from 1975 to 1993. I've been here 2.5 years, and there has never been, and correct me St Andrews if I'm wrong, there's never been a Sunday service without a Shirley Murray hymn. Is that correct? So if you come to this church and you're not familiar with Shirley Murray, you soon will be. It's probably quite significant that I welcome you all here on behalf of Anne Manchester. Anne and I go way back to 1991 to 94, when she was the journalist at the Crosslink office for the Methodist and Presbyterian churches, and I was the National Youth Coordinator, and we were in the same building. So we have a history that goes way back. She's also my new coffee buddy as well. So this has been Anne's labour of love. And I'm not going to say any more because other people will say things, and Anne will be up and down the stage introducing the various hymns of Shirley. So I just say to you all, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Fei, for your welcome and for hosting our launch at your church this afternoon. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Philip Garside and I'm the publisher of Peace is Her Song. We're going to have a mix of hymn singing and people speaking, and I invite author Anne Manchester to introduce our first hymn.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I will be jumping up and down a little bit. I'm hoping we have an organist. Oh, thank goodness we do. He had disappeared on me. Our first hymn is Where Mountains Rise to Open Skies. It's set by, the music has been written by a New Zealand Roman Catholic musician, Dr Vernon Griffiths. Shirley hoped it would become a national hymn chosen for the many state and community commemorations of the treaty held on the 6th of February each year. When she wrote the hymn, she was conscious she was writing not only for a Christian community, but also for citizens of every faith and none. She set out to express the bicultural life of Pākehā New Zealanders and Māori within our natural environment. So I feel sure that today Shirley would like us to sing this hymn in honour of the late Kiingi Tuheitia and in honour of our Aotearoa's new Queenie, Ngāwai Hono i te pō. So please stand and remember and honour these people this afternoon.
Publishing any book is a risky commercial venture. This book has been made possible by generous grants from 3 organisations. The money they provided has covered the cost of printing the book, holding this launch, and travel costs for Anne's upcoming promotional events in Auckland and the South Island. Please give a huge round of applause for Justice Compassion Trust Aotearoa New Zealand, the New Zealand Hymn Book Trust, and the Central Presbytery of the Presbyterian Church of Aotearoa New Zealand. We are indebted to you. For me, this is not just another book project. I'm a Methodist lay preacher, and I often choose Shirley's hymns for services that I lead. And we're singing 3 of her hymns tomorrow in honour of this launch today. When choosing her hymns, I know that her words will be inclusive. I won't have to worry about references to men, where we really mean people, or an assumption that God is male. Her words express ideas clearly. They're well crafted and easy to sing. And because of the quality of her words, music composers have been inspired to compose their best tunes to accompany them. I remember Shirley coming into Epworth Books 20 years or so ago, and I inanely said something like, "Oh yes, you wrote Upside Down Christmas," to which she gave me her gentle, quiet smile. Working on this book with Anne, I've learned that there is so much more to tell about Shirley. And Anne's going to introduce our next hymn.
Loving Spirit is our next hymn. The tune was written by David Dell. He's not here with us today, is he, David? No, I don't think so. But he lives in Karori. He might have made it. In fact, we're singing 2 hymns with tunes written by David Dell. But in the book, Loving Spirit, Shirley was interviewed about what was her favourite hymn. And she said, her answer was, "Isn't that like saying which one of your children you love best?" But I keep going back to Loving Spirit because it was the first one that introduced me to another world of hymns. It was the first of my hymns sung in an international setting at a World Council of Churches assembly, and it is the only hymn of mine that has been translated into Braille that touches me. So let's sing Loving Spirit.
Shirley's family have fully supported Anne as she assembled the material for the book. And I particularly want to thank them for sharing their stories about Shirley and all the wonderful family photos. They bring the book to life. Alastair, who is one of Shirley's sons, is now going to speak on behalf of the family.
So now I see the view finally that Dad had all these years. I'll stick to the script. Good afternoon and thank you all for being here. I'm Alastair, rhymes with Fred Astaire, Shirley's second son. Some of you may recall that in 2000, Mum was diagnosed with breast cancer. While at an appointment with the oncologist, she was asked, "And what do you do?" "I am a hymn writer," was the reply. "Oh, I thought they were all dead." Not yet. I should have known something was up when I was in Scotland last year. There I was in a church in Peebles on a Sunday morning, which is not my natural environment. And in the hymn book, there were 22 of Mum's hymns. If you can make it in the Presbyterian hymn book of the Church of Scotland, you can make it anywhere. And made it she has, and now that there's even a book to prove it. Thanks to Anne, Mum will now be immortalised. So let me get this out of the way. Mum would be mortified that this was going on. Her natural modesty would shy away from any of the hoopla to do with her. But she would also be quietly pleased that people would celebrate what she had set out to do. Anne contacted us a few months after Mum died about writing this biography. It seemed a little surreal, really. Was Mum so important that someone would bother to write a book about her? Apparently, yes. What had she really been up to all these years? It turns out that she'd been up to quite a lot. All these people writing to us after she died, saying what an influence that she had had on their lives, their faith, their hope for the modernising of the way the church went about things, in an age that had obviously outgrown the stodgy old way of expressing oneself in song on a Sunday morning. A lot of Mum's thoughts about how things were and why she and Dad tried to get the church to lift its game are written by Anne with reflections of people who were involved with her. No need to pursue any of that right now. $45 will get you all you need to know. It was hard for me to grasp what was really going on with all the hymn writing, as Mum was really leading a bit of a double life. Gosh, that's better. On the surface, things were pretty normal. Thank God it's in 22 font. Mum did just did what mums do, I guess. She had her part-time jobs, but we were busy growing up in a busy house where Mum made sure it all worked. Although we were told that what she had been doing was a bit of writing, it wasn't that relevant to us. But while we were at school or at work, and when we had left home, Mum was obviously getting stuff done. As we were not church-going, the importance of Mum's work was lost on us a bit. But when it came to things like the Anzac hymn, we certainly talked about what had been happening, especially with the RSA refusing to sing the verse about the conscientious objectors. Mum was a pretty calm person, but that really riled her up. I promised her not to join the RSA. So far, so good. Mum's real gift was her keen sense of language, rhyme and humour. Mixed in with her strong sense of faith and social justice, it was a potent combination. Anne has captured this, and I thank her for all the effort that she has put in to immortalising the grand she. If you don't know that reference, $45. And so I will leave you with an example of how she saw the world, and I hope you enjoy the book. On watching the opening ceremony of an Olympic Games, probably in the 1980s, when the resurgence of Māori language and culture was obvious, she proclaimed, "I think that we should rename New Zealand to Aotearoa. At least then we would walk into the Olympics before the Australians."
Thank you so much, Alastair and Linda, and the family. I am delighted. We're supportive of the book. It was terrifying approaching them, but I won most of them over, didn't I, Alastair? Most of them. So we're now going to sing two hymns together, Who Is My Mother, which just happens to be my all-time favourite, with music by Ian Render, an Anglican priest, and Where Is the Room, again by David Dell, music by David Dell. And you can see both of these are written as question, and Shirley quite liked writing hymns that had a question and then an answer. And you will also notice that most of these two hymns are quite domestic. They talk about tables and homes, because the main symbol of Christian teaching about community, said Shirley, is a table with people seated around it, sharing food. Not an altar with priest and sacrificial offering, but something essentially homely, familiar, accessible. So, Who Is My Mother is written to express in contemporary terms the meaning of the table as a gathering place, the character and identity of the people who come, and the kinship of all who know God's presence there. So let us stand and sing these two special hymns.
To pay tribute to Anne for writing this book and for all the work she has put in over the last 4 years. Anne had a clear vision of how she wanted the book to look, and we've spent an intense few months bringing that vision and making it happen. I congratulate you, Anne, and I invite you to talk about your book.
Well, it is feeling rather unreal. Have I really got to this point? Are you all really here? Yes, that hurt. It must be real. And I'm looking out at so many people who have helped and encouraged me along the way. Everyone gathered here will have different connections to Shirley, to this church, and to me. And I honour, in particular, members of Shirley's family who are here, and some of Shirley and John's lifelong friends. Thank you so much for coming. So, some of you know why I took on the role, why I kind of volunteered to be Shirley's biographer. It was in response to a challenge put out by the hymn writer Colin Gibson at Shirley's funeral on the last day of January 2020. After the funeral, I was gathered near him and I heard him say, "Of course, what we now need is someone to write Shirley's biography. But it can't be me, it needs to be someone younger than me." So I thought, well, yes, I'm younger. Have I got any other qualifications? I'm a journalist, good. I've published 3 books, good. I knew Shirley, good. Above all, I loved her hymns. Maybe that was a good set of qualifications. So I discussed this with Ian Harris in particular, who's somewhere around, and I eventually went to Colin and put my case to him. He was, of course, immensely encouraging, hosting me at his home over 4 days, that's in Dunedin, and introducing me to his wonderful companion to the publications of the New Zealand Hymn Book Trust, Knowing the Song, and you can see copies of that over there afterwards. I can assure you I could never have written the book without this magnificent resource. Writing the book comes from a deep pool of gratitude for Shirley's beautiful hymns that have kept me in the church, and for all that these have given and continue to give the church in Aotearoa and around the world. There was no shortage of material to draw on. There were the wonderful taped interviews by the Association of Presbyterian Women, and the interviewer, Shirley Irwin, is in our gathering here this afternoon. There was the St Andrew's Oral History Project. There were video interviews conducted by Hope Publishing Company in the United States, and other interviews conducted by Canadian hymn writer Ron Klausmeier. I had access to emails and letters, and then there was Shirley's own written record of her early life. And of course, I conducted about 40 interviews of people in New Zealand and around the world. There were many published articles, particularly in the wonderful New Zealand journal Music in the Air. The editors of that wonderful publication is seated right there, John Thornley. And in the American journal The Hymn, there were newspaper clippings and chapters about Shirley in books about hymn writers. So I became a curator of all this rich material, weaving the many strands together to create what I hope is something accessible and hopefully even beautiful. I have used Shirley's words wherever possible to tell her life story and to explain her motivations for her hymn writing and analysis of particular hymns. Shirley's themes were many and varied: peace, social justice, human rights, inclusivity, ecology. But her most abiding theme was that of peace, for seeking peace was at the heart of her understanding of the Christian faith. And she writes, "Almost everything I have written revolves ultimately around the concept of peace in all its manifestations." Peace for Shirley meant something much more creative and powerful than opposition to war. She said, "Everything radiates from it. Peace is environmental care. It is the atmosphere and ambience in which good and great things happen. Lack of peace equals hunger, domestic violence, and abuse of children, and fragile human relationships." Themes for Shirley were exciting, and there was always so much more to keep writing about, she said. At the beginning, I would never have thought of writing a hymn about AIDS. Unemployment, I am not frightened to write about. My family has experienced that. Health and healing are other areas that have come towards me, especially to do with the health system of our country. It has been failing those in need. My interest lies with justice and injustice, and who gets the care and from where. There is much more work to do. What we sing, we believe. And what we believe, we ought to sing. It's the best way to convey theology and the most enjoyable way to express it. Hymn writers have a responsibility to stretch people's horizons and to pull them into new theology that is memorable. Sermons will be forgotten, but hymns are memorable. They are the places for new ideas, new metaphors, new politics, for all our faith expressions to be held. If all my hymns disappeared bar one, I would hope it would be one with peace at its heart. As active peacemaking is terribly important to me, this is at the heart of what Jesus came for. So, finding the title of the book finally became evident to me, although reaching that most important of decisions had been difficult and caused me many a sleepless night and desperate emails to people around the country seeking their advice. But I'm sure Shirley and John would be so heartened to see the field of white poppies gathered in St Andrews today. Shirley often felt frustrated that most congregations chose to sing a fairly narrow range of her hymns. To rectify that a little, I have begun every chapter with a verse from one of her hymns, charting the theme of that chapter and tracking her own spiritual journey. I hope these verses will inspire congregations to seek out new hymns, to study, to learn, and to sing. I look forward to taking the book to other cities and centres, beginning with 2 launches in Auckland later this month and 5 in the South Island, including one at Southland Girls High School in Invercargill, Shirley's old school, which meant so much to her. And in the book, she describes the impact of the principal, Muriel May, who had the capacity to terrify, and her imprint on the school was impressive. She loved English literature and Shakespeare, and steered the school through the war years with aplomb and style. I was eager to please, started off well, and quickly discovered I was at home with words, but not much good with maths, science, or geography. Miss May also made a huge impression on Shirley's lifelong friend, Pamela Norris. She often spoke of being part of an inner circle of senior pupils. Shirley called it a Miss Jean Brodie type of thing, where Miss May cultivated girls whom she believed would be scholarship winners. Pamela remembered being invited into Miss May's study, where this special group of girls could discuss their futures and learn the art of cigarette smoking. Muriel smoked Sobranis, a sophisticated European brand of slim brown cigarettes. She taught them that as young ladies, they could do whatever they liked. They could smoke. They could go to university. They could make their own choices. This Invercargill friendship group lasted their whole lives. So, how times have changed, and thank goodness, smoking is no longer considered a symbol of emancipation and sophistication. So, taking the book back to Invercargill, where Shirley's life began, will bring the story full circle for me. I hope the book works. I hope it honours Shirley in the way she so richly deserves, and I hope it will give readers at least some of the pleasure that it has given me to research and write. I'm now going to come down and present 4 copies of the book to 4 people gathered here today. They are Ian Harris. Where is Ian, by the way? Oh, right there. Right there. Oh, right there. Oh, good. Ian Harris, Leslie Aitken, and you're right there, good. Julia Stewart, who's right down the back. These three have mentored and supported me most particularly, critiquing the manuscript and offering sage editing advice at various stages of its development. I also want to present a copy to Liz Gearing. Is she here? I'll have to give it to her. Liz Gearing is Lloyd's daughter. She was going to be here. And Lloyd features in the book quite a bit and was the very first person that I interviewed for it. But while I come down and present these copies, let's start singing again, Roy. And we have two of Shirley's green hymns to sing. Touch the Earth Lightly, with music by Colin Gibson. And did we sort out Where the Green Will Rise Again? Oh, good. And one you won't have heard of, many of you, Where the Green Will Rise Again. It was written almost 20 years after Touch the Earth Lightly. And you'll think, oh, I won't know the tune, but you will, because it's a traditional Irish-Scottish tune arranged by the American hymn writer Jim Strathdy. Thank you. Let's stand and sing.
First met Pamela Tankersley in 2006 when she was moderator of the Presbyterian Church of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and invited Epworth Books to run a bookstall at General Assembly. Pamela was for many years a board member of the New Zealand Hymn Book Trust and was a good friend of Shirley's. I'm delighted to invite Pamela Tankersley to officially launch Peace is Her Song.
Long time since I was from standing at this lectern here in St Andrews, but it is lovely to be home in that sense. I think I have come with some honour and privilege, not due to me, but to the New Zealand Hymn Book Trust. And also to the Justice and Compassion Trust, of which I am the chair. This is a trust put together to help a man called Jim Simons, an American who spent many years in New Zealand doing stated supply in parishes up and down the country. And then, in gratitude for the wonderful time we gave him when he was in Aotearoa, has bequested a massive amount of money, really. And I get the privilege, as the chair of the trust, spending it on projects that bring about justice and compassion. And what better project to support than the publishing of this book, and it's a delight that we have so done. I spoke to Jim Simons this morning in Pasadena. He tells me it's 106 degrees there, Fahrenheit that is, 41 degrees Celsius, and they're having a heat wave, and it's unbearable. Jim, this superbly generous donor, has been enthusiastically supporting Anne and the project as we went along, always wanting to know how far we've got. And he was glad to be told that this afternoon we are here to launch it. That's one hat that I wear. The second hat I want to wear, though, is actually as a friend and a sense of colleague with Shirley for over 50 years. I was recalling even today, as we left St Andrews, Roy and I were elders here, we had the 3 children, and we were disappearing off to Dunedin for me to be trained as a Presbyterian minister. And Shirley wrote us a farewell gift song. The men had to go thrum, 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 and we sang this ditty as my daughters went up and down the aisles and over the chairs and underneath and whatever. Shirley wrote fabulous ditties as well as hymns, I'll have you know. A special memory comes for me about 1979, or it might have been the early 80s. We had constructed a manger scene with the baby Jesus in it at the back of the church, and I'd made these figures as part of that. And the highlight of this particular manger scene was that as we gathered at midnight on Christmas Eve, we were to sing for the first time publicly, "Come Now, Lord Jesus." And of course Roy was playing, and I think Shona, you were there. Where's Shona? You were there, weren't you? Yes, we were. And Shona was the one who had arranged Lala Mintwana, which is the African song to which this carol is sung. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And I got to sing it again. It's another scene which is associated with St Andrews too. A group of us followed Lloyd Gearing to the Holy Land, and we got to Bethlehem. And we went into the church at Bethlehem, which I don't think you can even do at the moment. And we wound down and down and down into the crypt, to the place that they claim X marks the spot that Jesus was born. And there, half a dozen of us from St Andrews on the terrace gathered round, and we sang again, "Come Now, Lord Jesus." Extremely moving moment. Rosemary doesn't remember. Where are you, Rosemary? But you will remember, won't you? Yes, thanks. That's good. I don't think the congregation at St Andrews that we really realised until quite some time later that these extra beautiful hymns that we were being fed weekly were actually Shirley's compositions. There was one that I remember she told me later she wished she'd never heard of and had never been persuaded to write it. And that was the one that begins about women. "Come celebrate the women who brought the church to birth, the gentle revolution that will sustain the earth." Shirley's later view was that it was terribly exclusive. Shirley and her hymns have featured in my ministry all the way along. Indeed, she wrote me an ordination hymn for us to sing in Gisborne. Was "In the Name of Christ We Gather" in 1987. And every time I have been inducted to a new position, including being moderator, and each new church I've been, that's the hymn we have sung. And I know that many of my colleagues have done the same thing. I had a quiet chuckle because Shirley wrote to me and asked me permission, it was my hymn apparently, to send it off to Bishop Penny for her consecration in Dunedin. That was fun. She wrote, "Every day in your spirit" for a APW conference I was leading. She didn't like the theme I'd chosen, but she did like the idea, and she wrote a beautiful hymn. She wrote one for the Christian Conference of Asia when I was on the executive of that for the Assembly, and also for the Council for World Mission. I have managed to be in a lot of places where people sing Shirley's hymns as if they were the best thing that ever came their way, and it's been fantastic. In our hymns, of course, as we've said again and again, we sing our theology and the essence of our faith. And to do so with contemporary, relevant words and beautiful poetry is absolutely essential. But my task today, I think, is to laud not just one woman, but two. Shirley, our very skilled, hard-working enthusiastic author of Pieces of Song and Manchester. So, Anne, we're here to thank you and to say, fantastic, what a marvellous job you have done. We're thrilled to be here. We're so glad that you took Colin Gibson's approval seriously. I'm in awe of how many people you interviewed, representing their views in your way with such clarity and with perception. And how, above all, Alastair and I just agreed before, that it's Shirley's voice that is heard so clearly above all the other voices. And I even dared to say, without being overspoken by John. Her compassion, her calls for justice and peace, her deep theology, always there, but you have rescued them and put them in a form that we can see them again and again. This book is a companion taonga for the congregations, the musicians and the poets, for the churches, for Aotearoa and for the whole world. Just know that. Please know it. We can surely understand where Shirley was coming from, and with Shirley, more than we ever have before. So thank you, thank you, thank you, Anne. Marvellous effort. And Anne, who's Shirley's granddaughter, wants to do something. Thank you, Anne. So now, I've had the book. I have the book. I've had it for a couple of weeks. We have had it, haven't we, Roy? Yes, for a couple of weeks. Peace is her song, the life and legacy of hymn writer Shirley Erena Murray. Let me declare that it is now launched. And may God's Spirit continue to speak not only through Shirley's hymns, but through now her life story as told to us by Anne. And I want to quote what has been that little bit of forward in the book here. Everything that has voice, sing for peace, speak for peace. Given chance, given choice, work for peace, write for peace. Resonating everywhere, echoing our common care. Everything that has voice, sing for peace.
One more hymn, one last hymn, and a very different one. Who will there be to sing? One of the last hymns, in the later bracket of hymns that Shirley wrote. And each verse again begins with a question and followed by an answer. It's both a plea and it's a rallying call. The tune this time will be familiar to you. It's by an 18th century clergyman, John Dowell, and you will recognise it, I promise you. I want to thank Roy Tankersley, Shirley's husband, who was musical director here. Apologies, this has been a long afternoon. Pamela's husband, who has been diving from organ to grand piano. Thank you so much, Roy. So this is your last chance today to sing out. So let's sing out with all the kōtahitanga that we can muster.
Oh
So now's the time to buy your copies of Peace is Her Song. They're $45 each just for today. We can accept Visa, MasterCard, EFTPOS and cash. When you've brought your copies, Anne will be delighted to sign them for you. And do enjoy the refreshments at the back of the church and continue with your fellowship as you do. Thank you all again. Thank you.